The mirror caught me before I was ready. A stranger stared back, blonde hair, green eyes, lips trembling like a confession on the edge of sound. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. My name is Emily now, 34, 5'6", 118 pounds. But once, long ago, I was Jacob, just a boy with small-town dreams and no idea how easily one choice could rewrite a life. It started with nothing. A silly flyer, a name I made up, a prank on the universe. Emily. I wrote it down, laughed, and mailed it off. Then the letter came. Congratulations. And just like that, the joke was over, because the lie had already begun. It started with a silly contest flyer promising a luxury cruise for women. I filled out the form as Emily, half joking, and forgot about it. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Congratulations, you've won. My heart nearly stopped. Mom was furious Emily didn't exist after all. Dad thought it was hilarious until he read the fine print. The winner had to attend the cruise in person to collect the prize, and there was also a massive cash award. That changed everything. Within an hour, Mom had gone from outrage to calculation. "You realize this money could pay for college," she said, waving the papers. "We can't let a little thing like a skirt ruin that." She always had that tone that meant you're doomed if you argue. Dad tried to play neutral, hiding behind his newspaper, but I saw the gleam in his eyes. This was about money, not dignity. I protested. "No way, Mom. I'm not doing this. I'm a guy." "That's what we're going to fix," she replied calmly. "You'll cooperate, Jacob. We have 7 months." She lingered on Will the way generals do before a war. I slunk off to my room, muttering about parental tyranny, but it was too late. When she marched in with her tape measure, I realized how serious she was. Hips, waist, chest, shoulders, inseam measurements I'd never known existed. "I'll run a few calculations," she said briskly. "Then we'll create a girl named Emily. Don't go far." Her sewing room door shut like a cell block. I sat on my bed, staring at my hands, wondering what level of idiocy I'd reached. Advanced, probably. 7 months pretending to be a girl? Even imagining it made me sweat. When she finally emerged, she looked smug, always a terrible sign. "With your build," she said, "size 10 should fit. A little padding here, a curve there, and you'll pass easily enough." She sounded like she was discussing an art project. "Tomorrow we'll start. Don't leave the house unless it's on fire." Dad just sighed. "Kiddo, you did this to yourself. 7 months isn't that long. Besides, think of the money. You'll survive, and hey, you might even end up better looking than your cousin Sarah." I couldn't tell if he was trying to cheer me up or twist the knife. Either way, I sat at my computer later that night, staring at my reflection on the screen. What would I even look like as a girl? Curiosity beat humiliation, so I pulled up a picture of Aunt Karen's same height, similar bone structure, and used a photo editing program to blend our faces. When the image appeared, I froze. The girl on the screen looked possible. Not glamorous, but real enough to be unnerving. That was the moment it hit me. Mom might actually pull this off. I couldn't sleep. My brain buzzed with equal parts dread and curiosity. I searched the web for stories about men dressing as women, and was shocked by what I found. Not grotesque drag caricatures like on TV, but genuinely feminine people, men who could walk down any street unnoticed. There were guides, tutorials, even forums full of advice. Some pages sold products, special body pads, shaping garments, ways to hide what shouldn't show. At first, I laughed. Then I bookmarked half of them. Soon I was printing articles and reading stories about transformation, not fantasy anymore, but blueprints. Some sounded terrifying, others oddly practical. The more I read, the less impossible it seemed. And though every logical part of me screamed to find a way out, a small, treacherous voice whispered that maybe, just maybe, I wanted to see how far it could go. 7 months. "That's all it would take," Mom said. But staring at that picture of Emily, I had the uneasy feeling it might take much longer to go back. Some tiny, reckless part of me wanted to see it through, just to find out if Mom was right. If this experiment actually worked, though, that would mean my days as a boy were numbered, and that thought alone made my stomach twist. Still, curiosity has a way of winning over pride. What if, by some miracle, I did look pretty? Would I have to go out in public? Would guys my age notice me? Would they, God forbid, ask me out? The thought alone made me bury my face in the pillow. I heard Mom's car pull into the driveway and immediately decided that avoidance was the best strategy. It lasted until breakfast. "Today's the day," she said matter-of-factly, sliding a plate in front of me. "Go to your room, down to your briefs. I'll be right up." That tone left no room for argument. Within minutes, she entered my room, carrying several shopping bags and a small jar that smelled like industrial-strength skunk spray. "Stand still," she ordered. Before I could protest, she was painting the foul-smelling cream over every inch of me, shoulders, arms, legs, neck. I gagged. "What is that?" "Hair remover," she said sweetly. "Do your lower half in the bath and wait 30 minutes before you shower." The itching started fast. The smell was unbearable. When she finally let me rinse off, I nearly cried from relief until I noticed the tub filling with what had been all of my body hair. I stared at my bare skin, slick and pale, alien. Mom was all business when I stepped out. "See? Smooth as silk. Now put these on." She handed me a pair of soft white cotton underwear and began rubbing floral lotion into my skin. "This will help the irritation." She led me to her vanity table and motioned for me to sit. "Your hair's just long enough for rollers. Later we'll get it properly styled. For now, you'll learn how to set it yourself." Soon my head was a mosaic of pink, green, and blue curlers. Then came makeup. She explained each step as though she were teaching a life skill. Foundation, powder, eyeshadow, eyeliner. I followed her instructions, hesitant at first, but the mirror showed something undeniable. The faint roughness of my face softened into smooth skin, my features rearranged by subtle shades and lines. The boy vanished inch by inch. When she told me to open my eyes, she smiled. "That's enough for now. Time to dress." She handed me something she called a waist nipper, a contraption of hooks and boning that squeezed me until breathing was optional. 25 inches, she announced proudly. Next came a padded undergarment that shaped my hips and erased any trace of masculinity. Sheer pantyhose slid up my legs, whispering against skin that still tingled from the lotion. Then came a soft white bra with tiny cups. Mom slipped a bit of foam inside, and I suddenly had a chest small, but to my horror, convincing. The dress she chose was simple, a dark brown sheath that clung just enough to make me aware of my new form. When the zipper went up, I barely recognized the reflection staring back. Curves, smooth skin, painted eyes. Mom wasn't done. She removed the rollers and brushed out my hair until it framed my face in soft curls, fastening 2 pink and brown barrettes above my temples. Then came blusher, lipstick, earrings, perfume. She stepped back with satisfaction, as though unveiling a finished portrait. "Try the heels, darling," she said. I slid my feet into them, the pink leather gleaming against the brown fabric of the dress. I wobbled, but they fit perfectly. "Emily," Mom called softly, almost teasing. "What?" "Your father's waiting to meet his daughter." My pulse stuttered. "Mom, I know," she said, squeezing my hand. "You didn't think it would work, but it did." When we walked into the living room, Dad looked up from his paper, pipe halfway to his lips. It fell. His mouth opened, words failing him completely. The silence stretched until Mom finally spoke. "This is how Emily will be dressed until this is over," she said calmly. "However long that takes." Dad just nodded slowly, still staring at me, like I was a ghost wearing his son's face. And maybe, in a way, that's exactly what I was. Dad said nothing at first, just stared at the letter like it might rewrite itself if he waited long enough. So, he finally said, setting his glasses down, it's not just a cruise, it's a full-on competition. Mom's eyes glinted with something between excitement and challenge. Looks that way. Ball gowns, evening wear, swimsuits. I groaned. Swimsuits? Are you serious? Mom, look at these pictures. These women are they're women. There's no way I could ever. She cut me off with that calm, terrifying tone. We'll figure it out. Easy for her to say. I stared at the glossy photos, at the smooth lines and confident smiles, at the way each of them seemed born to glide across a stage. The idea that I'd have to stand among them made my pulse hammer. Dad slid the photos back across the table. I'm guessing you're not quitting, right? I hesitated, feeling the nylon on my legs, the weight of the dress, the faint scent of perfume clinging to my skin. I don't really have a choice, do I? Mom smiled faintly. That's the right answer. She stood, already in planning mode. For now, keep what you're wearing. Tomorrow, we'll get you proper clothes, skirts, blouses, flats, maybe another shaping piece or two. But no slacks yet. You'll thank me later. Dad just grunted and went back to his newspaper. Mom disappeared into her sewing room, leaving me alone with the mirror across the kitchen. My reflection stared back this stranger, with soft hair and painted lips, a careful posture that wasn't mine. I couldn't stop noticing the sensations. The slide of nylon when my legs crossed, the light press of the padded bodice, the faint shimmer of lipstick when I sipped my coffee. That's when the back door burst open. Jason! He'd been my shadow since grade school sleepovers, games, dumb pranks. We'd never needed permission to walk into each other's houses. That's why my heart stopped when he did it now. Oh, sorry, he blurted, freezing halfway through the door. I'm Jason. Is, Jacob here? Before I could make a sound, Mom swooped in like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Hi, Jason. Jacob's gone for quite a while, maybe a year. A year? What did he do join the army? I'm afraid I can't tell you. It's a secret. She turned to me with theatrical grace. This is Emily. She'll be staying here while Jacob's away. Jason blinked, clearly trying to process, but then he smiled. That same easy, confident grin he always used on girls. Nice to meet you, Emily. Sorry about barging in. Tell you what, let me make it up to you. Lunch on me? Before I could even open my mouth, Mom jumped in. She can't today or tomorrow, but Friday's perfect. Jason nodded, all charm. Friday it is! And just like that, he was gone. When the door shut, I realized I'd been holding my breath. My hands shook around the coffee cup. Mom! I hissed. What was that? She sipped her own coffee, utterly calm. He thinks you're pretty, and he's right. You should be flattered. Flattered? My voice cracked. He's my best friend, and you just set me up on a date with him? It's not a date, she said, too casually. It's experience. Practice. I stared at her, lost between panic and something stranger, a tiny spark of pride that Jason hadn't recognized me, that he'd actually smiled at me like that. Why was I even happy about that? Mom's tone softened. Listen, Emily, men look at women differently. You'll learn that soon enough. The prettier you are, the more you'll notice it. It's not always bad, but it's never equal. Jason's harmless, you've known him your whole life. If he ever does find out, he'll protect you like family. But for now, it's better if he doesn't know. I wanted to argue, but she was already spinning the plan forward. Tomorrow we're getting your hair trimmed and styled, your nails done, your ears pierced. We'll shop for a few more outfits, and you'll start practicing the little things, how to sit, how to move, how to talk. You're a tenor, right? Work up to a contralto. It's softer, more natural for you now. Her confidence was exhausting. I sat there, numb, tracing the rim of my cup. Jason's face lingered in my mind, his dark hair, the way his eyes had lit up when he smiled. He'd seen her, not me. And somehow, that stung and thrilled me at the same time. When I told Mom I wanted to go see him, to tell him everything, she shook her head. Not today. Let him think about you a bit. Friday, when you're polished, he'll see the finished version. So I waited. By the time Dad walked back in with the mail, I'd almost convinced myself that this was still a joke gone too far. But then he handed me an envelope addressed neatly to Emily. The letter inside ended that illusion for good. I hadn't exactly won yet. 20 names were listed, mine among them, finalists for the prize. The cruise was part of a full competition: ball gowns, evening wear, swimsuits. The attached photos showed past winners in bikinis so minimal they might as well have been decorative napkins. I let the paper slip from my fingers, my throat dry. Mom read it next, then passed it to Dad. Neither spoke. The silence between them was heavier than any argument. That's when I realized there was no turning back now. They both stared at me, waiting for something intelligent to come out of my mouth. But all I could manage was a strangled, "Well, I guess that's it for me. I can't wear that kind of swimsuit, Mom. Look at these girls. They're all, built. I'm just foam, rubber, and optimism." Mom's expression didn't soften. It sharpened. "Well, think about this, Emily. 7 months is a long time. Anything can happen." "Anything except me turning into them," I muttered. "You don't know that," she said. "And you don't know anything about the other girls either. Some might be just as nervous as you." "They're girls, Mom. Real ones. Judges aren't going to mistake me for anything but a fraud." The look she gave me, part pity, part challenge, made me shut up. Then she dropped the next bomb. "There's a meeting this Saturday night. All finalists. You'll have to go." "Go? Like this?" "Exactly like this. Think of it as a rehearsal, and a chance to size up your competition." I sank lower in my chair. Every fiber of my being wanted to rip off the dress, wipe away the lipstick, and crawl under the bed. But instead, I just sat there, feeling the nylon brush together as my knees moved, the faint tug of the dress around my waist, the soft pull of my borrowed chest. Everything about me was foreign and deliberate. Even sitting felt like a science. Mom had already corrected me 3 times. Bend and slide, don't plop. Keep your knees together. Hands folded in your lap, no pockets to hide them in. Every motion had to be rehearsed, calculated. I stared into my coffee, its surface trembling slightly. The only thing keeping me from running upstairs and changing into jeans was the number echoing in my head: $200,000. Full tuition and expenses at any college in the country. The kind of chance you don't get twice. That's when Dad looked up from the letter, his brow furrowed. "What if they pay the money to Emily and then find out she's not a girl? Wouldn't that be fraud?" We all froze. His words hit like a hammer. Mom set the letter down, slow and deliberate. "Then she'd have to stay Emily," she said, her tone almost daring me to argue. "Attend college as a girl. After that, they couldn't say a thing." My breath caught. 6 years. 6 years pretending no, being a girl. I saw my life unraveling before me, the walls of the kitchen closing in as they both looked at me. No one spoke for a long time. We were all trapped in the same impossible logic. Finally, I exhaled. "If I go through with this, and it works, I'd be the first in the family to graduate college." Dad gave a quiet nod and left the room, his silence saying everything. Mom grabbed a notepad and began scribbling items: dresses, shoes, accessories, while I retreated to my room, numb and restless. On autopilot, I opened my laptop and printed a list of the products I'd researched: shapewear, wigs, cosmetics, all the tools of the illusion. I handed it to her. She glanced over it, blinked once, and after a small choke of surprise, added it to her growing list. The rest of the day crawled by. I stayed indoors, a prisoner in my own skin, while Mom floated through the house, humming like a woman preparing for Christmas morning. By dawn, she was already at my door. "Up," she chirped. "We've got appointments." I followed her, dazed, still wearing yesterday's dress and flats. The salon smelled like a foreign planet chemicals, and citrus, and heat. Hair dryers hummed like bees. Women laughed, their voices lilting and confident, a language I didn't speak. Mom nudged me forward, and before I could resist, I was in a chair with a cape around my shoulders. Diane, the stylist, smiled at me in the mirror. "We're going for natural, right?" she asked, already combing through my hair. "Natural." "Sure." Scissors flashed. Golden strands fell around me, like autumn leaves. I flinched as inches of my hair hit the floor, certain she'd gone too far. Diane didn't pause. Rollers replaced scissors. A chemical scent filled the air. Under the dryer, I sat perfectly still, feeling ridiculous while another girl painted my nails soft red, rounded, delicate. When Diane returned, she removed the rollers, washed and dried my hair, and began brushing with confident sweeps. The person emerging in the mirror was no longer a boy. She was someone else entirely. Then Diane reached for a bottle, and with a few practiced strokes, turned my dirty blonde hair to a warm strawberry shade. My reflection blinked back, unfamiliar, yet mesmerizing. Mom's voice was soft behind me. "You see? It's not impossible after all." And for the first time, I couldn't argue with her. Diane had transformed me completely. My once dull hair, now a gleaming strawberry blonde that framed my face in soft waves, the back alive with tiny curls. The bangs swept to one side, light and playful, making my green eyes shine brighter than I'd ever seen them. It was dizzying. I'd expected to look ridiculous, but the mirror disagreed. Somehow, I looked right. Mom paid the bill, chatting casually with Diane as if this were any ordinary Saturday. Once outside, she glanced at me with a smile. "Feel better now, Emily?" "A little," I admitted. "I never knew a haircut could change someone that much." "That's why women love salons," she said. "You can reinvent yourself in a few hours. New style, new life." Something in her voice made me stop resisting. Maybe she was right. Maybe I should stop fighting this, lean into it, do it properly. If I was stuck as Emily for months, I might as well be good at it. 4 years of tuition, or maybe 6, was worth the effort. The mall loomed ahead like a test I hadn't studied for. But once we stepped inside, I found myself oddly calm. Side by side, we could have been any mother and daughter shopping for the season. No one stared, no one guessed. The lingerie section swallowed me first. Bras, slips, camisoles, nightgowns. Mom loaded my arms until I could barely see. Then came skirts and blouses, dresses, and a fitted suit. 2 of the skirts were shorter than I'd ever imagined wearing, but Mom just smiled when I hesitated. "You've got the legs for them," she said. Shoes came next: red, black, white heels, flats in taupe and ivory, even gym shoes. Jewelry followed ear piercing, a dozen pairs of earrings, bracelets, necklaces. It was dizzying, overwhelming, but also strangely thrilling. The girl in the mirror stores and fitting rooms was becoming familiar, almost comfortable. On the drive home, I found myself wishing Dad would at least say something when he saw me. He didn't. He just looked up briefly from his paper, nodded, and went back to reading. Somehow, that stung more than if he'd laughed. In my room, I unpacked everything, trying on outfit after outfit until I settled on a short green skirt with accordion pleats and a white pullover. Gym shoes made it casual, almost normal. I touched up my lipstick, spritzed perfume, and looked at myself one last time. I didn't look like Jacob pretending anymore. I looked like a girl named Emily, someone with her own reflection, her own quiet, nervous confidence. Mom said I looked lovely. Dad still wasn't home, but my thoughts were on Jason anyway. The idea of just showing up at lunch without warning him felt wrong, so I told Mom I was going to his house. She only said, "Don't barge in like he does." The walk across the yard felt endless. The wind lifted my skirt slightly, but Diane's maximum hold spray kept my hair perfectly in place. I rang the bell, heart pounding. His mother answered with a warm smile. "Yes, dear? Can I help you?" In my best contralto voice, I asked for Jason. She didn't hesitate, didn't blink. She'd known me my whole life, and still she didn't recognize me. That realization hit harder than I expected. Jason appeared at the top of the stairs, grin spreading wide. "Emily, I didn't expect to see you till tomorrow." "Jason," I said quietly, "we need to talk." His mom looked between us, curious but kind. "I'll be in the family room." "No, please," I said quickly. "You should hear this too." We sat at the kitchen table, Jason across from me, confusion written all over him. I took a deep breath. "It's easier if I just say it," I managed. I'm Jacob, your friend Jacob." For a second, neither of them moved. Then Jason blinked, his mouth opening slightly. His mom's eyebrows shot up, but she didn't say anything. I kept talking, told them everything. The contest, the money, Mom's plan, the deal. My throat burned, my eyes stung. "I'll go," I said finally, voice cracking. "I get it if you don't want to see me again." I was halfway to the door when Jason's mom stopped me. "Sit down, Emily." She looked at her son. "Jason, did you know?" He shook his head. "No, I had no idea. But it's kind of obvious now that you say it." He smiled weakly. "Though honestly, I thought Jacob just ran off somewhere." His mom gave me a warm look. "Emily's doing what she has to do. That doesn't change the friendship you two have. Now talk it out. I'll leave you alone." When she left the room, the silence between us thickened. Jason leaned back, studying me. "So, you're really doing this?" "Yeah, for college. Maybe 6 years tuition if I win." He whistled low. 6 years? For that kind of deal, I'd wear a dress too. Despite myself, I laughed. He grinned. "See? There's the Jacob I know." Then, softer. "You're still my friend, and for what it's worth." His eyes flicked over my face. "You make a pretty convincing girl." The words hit somewhere deep, equal parts comfort and confusion. I didn't know what to say. Then, casually, he reached across the table and took my hand. "Lunch is still on," he said. My heart skipped a beat. "Jason!" He just smiled. "Friday, right? Don't be late." Jason's invitation caught me completely off guard. He'd barely dropped my hand before saying, half grinning, half nervous, "I want to see you all fixed up really fancy. How about dinner next week? There's a dance at the country club. Be my date." I opened my mouth, but before I could answer, he was already pulling me out of the chair. "Come on, let's get lunch." The next hour passed in a blur. We both pretended it was casual, but it wasn't. He looked at me differently now, and I couldn't decide if I was flattered or terrified. Jason, who could get any girl he wanted, had chosen me. Somewhere between the jokes and the awkward pauses, I realized how dangerous that thought was, how easy it was to forget who I was supposed to be. When he dropped me off, he hesitated, eyes flicking to my lips. For a second, I thought he'd lean in. Instead, he just smiled, told me he'd call, and left me trembling in the doorway. Inside, Mom listened patiently as I explained everything, then smiled like a woman who'd expected the whole thing. "Then we'd better finish what we started. If you want to look perfect by Saturday, we need to get those molds done tonight." I expected it to be quick, just measuring and mixing material. It wasn't. Following the instructions, we shaped the casts precisely. I thought we were finished until Mom said, too casually, "Not yet. Strip down." I froze. "What? Why?" "I read one of those transformation guides you printed. I think we can make you smoother, more realistic." I tried to protest, but her tone made it clear this wasn't a debate. I did as she asked, cheeks burning. "Lie back," she said, "and hold still." She pressed something cold against me, an ice bag. I hissed at the shock of it. "Relax," she murmured. This will make things easier. Her adjustments were careful but methodical. When she stepped back, she looked oddly triumphant. Stand up, Emily. Look! I glanced down, heart pounding. My reflection showed a nearly seamless illusion smooth skin where there shouldn't have been. A fragile line, a new silhouette. It was unnerving and strangely convincing. Mom clasped her hands, beaming. Perfect! That should hold about 10 days. Try moving, see if everything's comfortable. Embarrassed, I nodded and did as she asked. Everything worked fine. When I dressed again, the new shaping made my body seem naturally feminine, my clothes fitting better than ever. Later, we went to the post office to mail the finished molds. Watching the envelope disappear through the slot felt like sealing away the last piece of Jacob. By the time we returned home, I could barely remember what it felt like to move differently, to walk like him. That evening, Dad came home carrying something large, Jason right behind him. Together, they carried a vanity upstairs and set it against my wall, a gift, apparently. Every young lady needs a place for her things, Dad said. I wanted to thank them both, but Jason's hand brushed me as he left a fleeting touch on my hip. Maybe an accident, maybe not. I pretended not to notice. Mom, of course, noticed everything. When the door shut, she turned to me. Jason likes you, she said simply. And I mean, likes you. What? Mom, he knows who I am. She folded her arms. He's a boy, Emily. Boys react to what they see. He's not thinking about old memories. He's thinking about the girl in front of him. And when a man wants something, logic isn't the part of him doing the thinking. Mom! Just remember what I said. Be careful. I rolled my eyes, but her warning echoed in my head. 2 nights later, I learned how right she was. I went downstairs in one of my new nightgowns, thin and airy, to watch TV. I hadn't bothered with shapewear, it was late, and I was tired. Dad looked up from his chair, froze, and nearly dropped his paper. Go put something on, he barked, voice cracking. I blinked, startled. Mom hurried me out of the room. Only then did I realize how sheer the gown was. I'd been completely exposed. When I came back wearing a robe, Dad refused to meet my eyes. Girls your age don't walk around like that, he muttered. Not my daughter. His daughter. The word hit me like an electric shock. Mom gave me that smug, knowing smile, the kind that said, now you see what I meant. By Tuesday, the custom forms arrived. Inside were the new prosthetics so realistic they startled me. They were soft, warm to the touch, colored exactly like my skin. Together, Mom and I attached them carefully. When she stepped back, even she seemed amazed. They're perfect, she whispered. I looked in the mirror and saw someone who wasn't pretending anymore. My shape, my face, my posture, it all belonged to her. That afternoon, we went shopping again, this time with purpose. I wasn't nervous, not anymore. The reflection I'd feared had become my armor, and for the first time, walking through the mall, I felt an unexpected truth settle deep inside me. I didn't just look like Emily now. I was Emily. Jason's invitation had felt like a dream. I hadn't meant to have his eyes bright, his voice unshaken when he asked me to dinner and the country club dance. He said he wanted to see me all fixed up, and the words lingered in my head long after he'd gone. I'd never imagined anyone, least of all him, would look at me that way. When he pulled me from the chair and dragged me to lunch, we were both trying too hard to seem casual. He teased, I deflected, and yet the air between us buzzed with something new, something we didn't have a name for. He was drawn to me as if nothing about my past existed. I, for my part, felt caught between disbelief and a strange, reckless excitement. That night, I told Mom. Her only response was a quiet, knowing smile. Then we'll make sure you're ready, she said. You'll need the right dress and the right confidence. Over the next few days, preparation became ritual. Every morning, I did my hair, practiced my voice, adjusted the way I stood and smiled. The reflection in the mirror no longer startled me. It felt natural, almost right. The more effort I put into looking like a woman, the less effort it took to be one. By the weekend, my nerves had softened into anticipation. The dress I'd chosen was black, strapless, and daring, its neckline low enough to make me blush, but not enough to scandalize. I spent hours getting ready, every small detail deliberate. Copper and gray eyeshadow, soft rose on my cheeks, red on my lips. When I stepped into the heels, the transformation was complete. Mom's voice floated from behind me. Out to capture his heart, are we? I wanted to deny it, but couldn't. Maybe I wanted to. When Jason arrived, his reaction said more than any words could. His breath caught, his eyes widened, tracing every inch of me before he remembered to speak. Emily, you look incredible. Even Dad's stoic, unreadable dad smiled faintly. She is beautiful, he said simply. Our daughter. The words landed like a benediction. Dinner was pleasant, light, almost ordinary, except for the way Jason kept looking at me, like I was someone he was trying to memorize. When the music started, he offered his hand. I hesitated, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. On the dance floor, the world shrank to the rhythm of his steps and the warmth of his hand on my back. He held me carefully, like something precious, yet his nearness sent a current through me I couldn't ignore. Every breath, every sway, blurred the line between who I was and who I appeared to be. When he whispered my name, it wasn't playful. It was real. I looked up, and before I could think, his lips brushed mine soft, uncertain, and devastating. My mind screamed contradiction, but my heart didn't care. For a moment, everything I'd been fighting slipped away, replaced by something simpler and far more dangerous. Desire to belong, to be seen, to be wanted. The drive home was quiet. The tension between us hung like a held breath. When he parked in front of my house, he turned toward me, eyes dark and searching. Emily, he said softly, I don't know what's happening, but I don't want it to stop. I didn't have an answer. I only knew that part of me, the part I'd tried so hard to ignore, didn't want it to stop either. That night in Jason's car changed everything. The windows fogged, the air thick with the kind of tension that no one ever plans. When I finally pulled away, we just sat there, breathing hard, eyes locked, both of us confused by what we had crossed into. He looked at me like he didn't understand why he wanted me. I looked back, wondering why part of me wanted to let him. I asked him to take me home. The silence between us was full of questions neither of us dared ask. I knew that if I'd stayed even a little longer, I might not have stopped him. Something had shifted inside me, not just my body, but my sense of who I was. The fear was gone, replaced by a strange acceptance. The idea of living as Emily no longer felt like an act. It felt like a beginning. Over the next weeks, my life found a rhythm. I got a job as a clerk in an office, learned to navigate the world as one of the women in the room, skirts, blouses, soft laughter by the coffee pot. No one questioned me. No one looked twice. Jason and I kept seeing each other, but the heat of that first night mellowed into something deeper, steadier, almost tender. At 18, I didn't need permission to choose my own path, and one quiet afternoon, I made that choice official. I found a doctor who listened instead of judging. The changes came slowly, my skin softer, my face rounder, my body beginning to match the person I had already become in my mind. Mom noticed first. During one of her routine fittings, she paused, studying me with gentle surprise. These aren't from padding anymore, she said softly. I nodded, and she didn't push. She just smiled and told me to let her know when my bras stopped fitting. Life moved forward. The disguise had become real. The reflection was no longer something I put on in the morning. It was who I was. When Dad noticed, he was speechless. His son had become someone else entirely, someone he still loved but didn't quite understand. Jason remained close, protective but adoring, the only one who'd been there through every change. The world around me kept turning, but for the first time, I wasn't pretending to belong to it. I did belong. I was Emily now, wholly, permanently, and finally without fear. Dad's disbelief hung heavy in the air, like a storm that refused to break. He wanted proof, and when he saw it, when he saw me, the silence that followed was louder than any shout. The truth had become undeniable. Whatever argument he might have had about who I was ended in that single moment. Afterward, the house slowly settled back into something like calm. I slipped into shorts and a blouse, helping Mom with dinner as though nothing monumental had just happened. But something had shifted. My father, for all his confusion and bluster, now saw his daughter standing in front of him. There was no going back. In the following weeks, my focus shifted toward the cruise, the event that had started it all. I refined every detail, my wardrobe, my voice, even the way I carried myself. The old hesitation was gone. I felt sure of myself for the first time, proud of who I had become. Jason noticed it too. He admired the confidence I carried now, the ease in my laughter, the way I moved without apology. Our connection deepened, no longer built on confusion or secrecy, but on something quiet and steady trust, maybe even love. When the cruise came, I brought Mom along. It felt right. She had walked every step of this transformation with me. On the ship, surrounded by so many elegant girls, I expected to feel like an outsider, but I didn't. I fit. The interviews went well. The judges saw a poised, articulate young woman, not the boy I used to be. That night, under the soft deck lights and the hum of the ocean, I walked the stage in my black dress. The applause didn't matter. What mattered was that for the first time, I wasn't pretending. I was Emily. By the final day, when the results were read, I hardly cared about the numbers. Still, hearing my name and learning I'd earned a 4-year scholarship made me lightheaded with joy. It wasn't just about school anymore. It was about having claimed my life. On shore, Dad and Jason met us with open arms. Dad's eyes softened when he saw me, not with confusion now, but with pride. Jason stood beside him, his hand warm in mine, his expression steady and full of something I couldn't quite name. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going back. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. The night passed in a blur of closeness and quiet heartbeat rhythms, a memory that would stay with me long after the world itself seemed to change. By morning, Jason and I were no longer just two people caught up in circumstance. We were a single story written in the same breath. A few months after returning home, I went into the hospital for the final step of my journey. When I woke, I was sore, exhausted, and at peace. The mirror no longer showed two lives competing for space, only one, fully realized. I was finally, completely Emily. Recovery took weeks. The world outside went on as always, cars passing, clocks ticking, but for me, time slowed into a stillness I hadn't known before. That's when the letter came. My scholarship was being challenged. Someone had claimed that I was ineligible, that I wasn't a real woman. Our lawyer answered with calm authority. I was willing to prove otherwise. And so, 2 months later, in a small clinic with my doctor, my parents, and theirs, the matter was settled quietly and irrevocably. The test confirmed what my heart had known all along. The scholarship stood. Dad never said much about it, but something in him softened. He started calling me his princess. It wasn't just affection, it was acceptance. He had redecorated my old room while I was away, soft pinks and delicate florals, pretending it was just in case. We both knew better. That room wasn't for who I might be. It was for who I already was. Life moved forward, as it always does. I went back to work, ready to return to normal or whatever passed for normal in this new world of mine. Jason and I had plans, of course. Dreams. The kind you whisper late at night when everything seems possible. But life, as I learned, doesn't always ask permission. The phone call came one gray afternoon. Mom's voice trembled. "Emily, honey, there's been an accident." By the time I reached the hospital, he was gone. The boy who had held my hand through every transformation lay still and perfect, as though just asleep. I stayed beside him for a long time, tracing the memory of him with my eyes until I couldn't anymore. The funeral was small. So many things were left unsaid. His absence hollowed out the days that followed, but I kept moving, one step, one class, one heartbeat at a time. College began that fall, and though I went through the motions, I often felt like I was walking through someone else's life. Then, slowly, the world began to color itself again. I met Mark, a familiar face from high school. He made me laugh, which was something I hadn't done easily in months. He didn't know my past, and I didn't tell him. He saw me as I wanted to be seen. A woman, bright and capable, just like anyone else. He was Amber's twin brother, which should have been strange, but it wasn't. We went on dates that turned into long walks, and long walks that turned into quiet nights, where words weren't needed. His kindness wasn't showy, it was steady, like gravity. Over time, affection became love, and love became home. We married young, both still in college, living in a small dorm apartment with more dreams than furniture. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Years later, I graduated not as an engineer, but as a woman running the floor of an R&D lab, respected, capable, unremarkable in the best possible way. When Mark and I wanted children, I told him gently that I couldn't carry any. He only smiled and said, "Then we'll find another way." And we did. Through my mother's gift and the miracle of medicine, we brought a son into the world, Ryan. The day I held him in my arms, I felt something shift again. Not transformation this time, but arrival. For the first time, I wasn't becoming someone else. I was simply me. Ryan arrived in my life with bright blue eyes, a fierce cry, and the kind of wonder that rewires every part of you. From that moment on, every late-night feeding and every soft morning giggle felt like proof that I'd found peace at last. Mark was radiant in his new role as a father, and Amber, ever the doting aunt, spoiled him shamelessly. By the time Hannah came along 3 years later, our home was full of noise and joy. For the first time, I felt completely whole. I no longer worried about how the world defined me. I had given life, and that was enough. Then, one quiet afternoon, while I was waiting for Hannah to come home from school, Ryan came into the kitchen wearing one of her play dresses. His hair was a tangle of ribbons, his face smudged with lipstick. Am I pretty, Mommy?" he asked. I smiled, even as something deep inside me trembled. "You're beautiful, sweetheart, but maybe let's change before your sister gets home, all right?" He nodded, embarrassed but glowing, and ran off to his room. That night, as I folded his clothes, I couldn't stop thinking about the look in his eyes, that pure, unguarded joy of seeing himself reflected the way he wanted. I didn't say anything to Mark at first. I told myself it was probably just a phase, the kind of innocent curiosity every child has. But when I found Ryan trying on my scarves a few weeks later, I understood. Maybe it wasn't a phase. Maybe the same questions that had once shaped my life were now beginning to whisper in his. Eventually, I told Mark. He surprised me by listening. He didn't raise his voice or slam the table. He just sat there, quiet and thoughtful. "If he's going to explore this," he finally said, "then he should do it safely and honestly. No pretending, no secrets." It wasn't an easy road. We stumbled, argued, and worried more than either of us would admit. But through it all, Ryan never seemed frightened. He was curious, kind, and open in a way that only children can be. As he grew older, his experiments with identity came and went. Sometimes he'd ask for a bright scarf or a colorful shirt. Other times he'd shrug and go toss a football in the yard. It wasn't about clothing. It was about belonging, about learning who he was. And through all of it, I learned too. I learned that love, the real kind, isn't about shaping someone into what you think they should be. It's about giving them room to become who they already are. Now, when I watch Ryan and Hannah racing down the sidewalk, I see both the past and the future at once. My son, or perhaps someday, my daughter will have a life of their own making. Time will tell. But this time, it won't be built on fear. It will be built on truth and the quiet, steady kind of love that once saved me.